Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Antidude, bringing you another video. What we're going to talk about in this short mini-series is how you're playing your retro games in 2025. So we want to do a brief series on using original hardware, a dedicated emulator hardware, as well as some of the newer options like emulating on your cell phone. So I'm going to mainly talk about things in terms of Game Boy, as I really enjoy playing Game Boy on my retro handheld as well as my phone, and I'm a Game Boy developer, so I'm primarily going to be talking about these things lens of Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance, and some of my experiences and feelings towards each one. Alright, so for original hardware, I mean, the obvious thing is the nostalgia of playing on your original piece of equipment and the meaningfulness of playing the game on the console for which it was designed. So of course the games were designed with this hardware in mind, and playing with it is just the ultimate experience, which I'm sure you all remember the first time you got your console. But once again, there's value with playing the game on the form factor with which it was intended to be played. And let's be honest, there's nothing better than this sound right here. There's really nothing quite like putting that cartridge in the back of the Game Boy, which the feeling's just so familiar since we spent hours playing and switching out our games. This is one of the main benefits of the Game Boy, of course. And just the overall nostalgia of it. I'm sure everyone's got memories of bringing these things along to different events and throwing the Game Boy in your backpack for school. So having that actual hardware in your hand is very valuable to some people, which I definitely understand. So for my own personal story, I got this Game Boy in Christmas of 1999, and I really strongly remember the first time I turned on Pokemon Red and started to learn what the game was about. And I really recall the first time I ever left the player's house into Pallet Town, and that was just the start of a brand new adventure for me as a young man. So I really remember that. And shortly after that, my dad was in the National Guard, so at the eve of Y2K, we were staying over in an armory, our local armory, to prepare, as no one knew really what would happen during Y2K. So my brother and I were sleeping on a cot inside this army building, kind of waiting for Y2K, and I distinctly remember playing this Game Boy and playing Pokemon Red and being in the dark cave at that time. And that's just a really strong memory for me, and the reason that anyone can probably relate to for wanting to use original hardware here in 2025. So this is a personal story for me. Of course, there are definitely some drawbacks to the original hardware. Number one, these things are fairly expensive at this point, and you may get into a bidding war or getting price gouged for certain hardware that you're looking for. As well as we all know the hardware constraints we're dealing with, specifically the backlit screen, which is a huge reason why I kind of prefer emulation on a dedicated piece of hardware today. So some of those things, we all know the feeling of trying to use this Game Boy Color with the passing street light or the worm light is pretty challenging, as well as the horror of having your game cut off in the middle of a important Zelda battle because your batteries run out and you didn't notice that the light was pretty dim on the side there. So these are obviously some of the drawbacks to original hardware. And one other thing too is, as I mentioned before, there's nothing like snapping that cart into the back of your Game Boy. However, we know carts are pretty finicky and will eventually wear out between some of the chips and the battery as well. So these things get some wear and tear on them as we use the physical hardware that was originally designed, and the carts definitely have a finite lifespan. So thanks for listening, guys. This is just a brief video and a simple video to explain some of my personal thoughts and experiences with using dedicated original hardware for your games. There's a lot of information out there about emulation and playing games on your original hardware, so I want to do this simple and quick video on the benefits of the original hardware that the games were designed for and intended to be played on. So let me know in the comments what you prefer, which games you remember playing on your original hardware. Like I said, we're doing a mini-series on either using original hardware, emulation hardware, or emulation on the cell phones.